The sporty style coupe definitely has a dynamic proportion layout and it compares to a lot of rivals. Today, Lexus of Wesley Chapel has given us the 2022 Lexus RC 350 Atomic Silver. The sports car definitely has a fast look. It goes after rivals like your Genesis G70, your Audi A5, your Infiniti, even the new Mercedes-Benz C300. The difference between this, inside, it's going to keep that sport heritage. The rear is going to be a little bit tighter than some of the rivals, and you have two options, a turbo 4 or a naturally aspirated V6, which is what we have, over 300 horsepower. It's not going to be a track-driven type of car. However, you're going to get butter smooth ride quality out of a sports car, which is not heard of when you are comparing it to any of the rivals. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and I'm going to go over all the specs and details starting now. The new Lexus RC 350 is definitely going to have a very sporty athletic style, and the best part is it has the best ground clearance comparing it to most of the rivals. When you get into BMW and Mercedes, it's going to sit a little bit lower. This one has a wide track in the front and on the rear. I like the enlarged grille with the Lexus badging in the center. You get the chrome over it and it brushes into your standard LED L daytime runnings and by LED headlamps. On the lower, it proportions out and you got a small little fog light in between, and even on that lower lip, it just keeps the aggressive proportions any way you look at it, brushing over with the fenders flaring out, multi-spoke 19-inch wheels. The side skirt flares out even more, chrome that wraps around the top of your window seal, gloss black on the top of your mirror cap, flowing into your LED tail lamps and ending with a side vent that goes right into your dual exhaust outlets. There's no diffuser, but this is left for the F Sport, and there's not going to be any major changes for 2023. So when you're looking at comparison between 2022 or 2023, they're basically about the same. The nearly 2-ton curb weight with a 55-45 weight distribution. When you're comparing it to the rivals, it's not going to be as athletic. The front disc rating behind those 19-inch wheels at 13.2. The rear is at 12.2 inches. The F Sport will add the Torsum limited slip differential. The RC sets with a double wishbone front suspension, a multi-link rear suspension. Both the front and the rear will have your coil springs and your anti-roll bars. Length at 185 inches, so getting around anything is not going to be too difficult because it's not that long of a vehicle with a wheelbase at 107.5 inches. The strong aerodynamics keep all the way to the rear, and when you're looking at that Audi A5, this is going to look more athletic. When you're looking at a BMW 3 Series, again, more athletic. The only thing that I would really say is going to be more of a competition would be the new Mercedes-Benz C300 or the Infiniti. And on the lower trim piece, like I was saying, the diffuser would be something more appreciated, especially because of how performance-driven it is. No rear spoiler. Going inside to your cargo at 10.4 cubic feet. You have a spare tire tucked underneath the floor. The rear bench split folds at a 40-60 split, over 300 horsepower, naturally aspirated V6, which is hard to come by in any of the competition. Let's go inside, start it up so you can hear that exhaust note. The Lexus RC350 definitely has a throaty, naturally aspirated V6 note. And the best part about it is none of the rivals offer this type of engine, and they back the performance with a 3.5 liter V6, producing 311 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque that's paired to an 8-speed direct shift automatic transmission, achieving 20 to 28 mpgs. That's good for a 0 to 60 around 5.8 seconds, which is going to be slower than most of the rivals. It's going to be faster than the Audi A5. Also, it's going to have the most horsepower comparing to all of the rivals except for the Infiniti Q60. A quarter mile at 12.8 seconds, which is the fastest of all of the competition except for the new Mercedes-Benz C300, and it's only a few tenths quicker. So when you're looking at the sports styling, you have good cargo, room in the interior, which you're gonna see, it definitely ticks all the boxes with great performance numbers and a smooth ride. Let me know in the comments what you think about the 2022 Lexus RC350 as we go into the interior, go over the tech, and take this for our test run. Entering inside the Lexus RC350, it's a little low to the ground, but it still has very good ground clearance. Headroom at 39 inches, legroom 45.4 inches. 10-way power adjustment for the driver, 8-way power adjustment for the passenger, perforated with the stitchwork. They're heated, ventilated in this Flex Sports New Luxe seating, which I kind of like it. It feels very airy, and when you have the ventilated seats, you really don't have to worry in the state of Florida. The bi-level dashboard is definitely a race-inspired thing, just it needs to be updated, and it goes into the 7-inch multicolor audio sound system because we don't have navigation. For the price point, I wish we did. We do have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, streaming Bluetooth audio, dual climate control settings. I like the analog clock that's in the center with the silver for all of your air vents because that does keep more of a sporty attribute. And what's happening nowadays with a lot of the new vehicles is they're taking the analog clock and they're putting a digital clock, or they're just reconfiguring the dash to be a little bit more subtle, not so needing a refresh, unfortunately. There is an optional 10.3 inch that you can option. Lexus touchpad is right here because it's not a touch screen infotainment either. The sensitivity on the touchpad is pretty good. I have noticed that there's sometimes that it goes to the wrong icons, but for the most part it works. Switch it to reverse. You have full trajectory. You can change the view on the lower left and right. I like the fact that you still have some functionality. It would be nice that it would just be a standard 10.3, maybe move it up, because you have this tray here that I guess you could set some paperwork or whatnot. Working down the lower with a CD player, I do like the fact that you have that because none of the rivals are going to unless you go into the Infiniti Q60. You have your Eco and your Sport mode, which will make it a little bit more athletic. Cup holders, you can fit a 16.9 ounce, I would say a 20 ounces max. Elbows are going to be Sport derived. Open up inside, you're gonna get 2 USB-C ports and a 12 volt. Pretty decent sized storage, just not so deep. Steering wheel is a 3-spoke leather wrap multi-function with the paddle shifters. The stocks is something that are a little bit more bulky than my liking, but the gauge cluster I think is okay with the analog, even though you do have a little bit of a digital reader in the center that you can go through an array of information for the driver. And you can also toggle your safety features, and you can change the clock and just some normal settings in the vehicle. As for the door panel, harder materials are going to be on the top. Driver gets memory seats. You're going to get the wood look with one touch up and down for your windows, contrast stitching, and the storage pocket in the door panel is not the biggest, but this is a coupe. You're not really expecting to throw a lot of things. As long as you got a couple cup holders and you got some cargo in the back, you're pretty much taken care of. Plus, we have a back seat that you could throw in duffel bags for. See how I look back there as well. For the back seats, I'm at 34.8 inches of headroom, which is going to be a tight fit for some of my dimensions. Legs at 27.3 inches, so it is super small back here. Obviously, a 4-door is going to be more efficient in the sense of fitting people back here. There's no reason really to compare that. But if you're comparing coupes to coupes, it's pretty much spot on. What happens is you want this styling on the exterior, you're going to have to suffer on the inside. On the side panels, pretty soft. You got contrast stitching, a large speaker. The window isn't necessarily so big, and the way the roof slopes around you you really just don't have a lot of space if you're over 6'3". No cup holders, some air vents in the center, harder materials in the side, and you're gonna basically be holding your drinks as you go for a ride. Taking the 2022 Lexus RC 350 out on our test run, naturally aspirated V6. That is something that is very hard to come by in any competition level. 311 horsepower. The torque is not going to be the best. When you're comparing it to the rival, it's actually one of the least. However, 0 to 60, you are getting pretty decent speeds. A quarter mile under 13 seconds, so it is pretty quick. You sit lower, but the ground clearance is good at over 5 inches, so that is one of the best in class too. The width of the vehicle, you can kind of feel it inside the interior. Even though the seats are a little bit more sport derived, it still feels very athletic in the interior, even though the dashboard is a little bit older than my liking, but it's a Lexus. You got a smooth suspension and you have a drive. I mean, look at this. Now, because it is a little bit lower to the ground, you're gonna hear a little bit more road noise, but you don't sacrifice in the ride. That's why I like Lexus so much. When you're comparing it to the rivals, the seat comfort is good, ventilated seats, awesome. 10-way power adjustments. Because of the price point, I wish that it had at least 12 or 14-way power adjustments, because once you start getting into the $50,000 price point, you start really getting a little bit more luxury in some of the rivals. Try to stop in the middle of the road, 3.5 liter, 280 pound-feet of torque. Brakes, dynamics. I mean, 5.8 seconds, 0 to 60. You're gonna have some fun with this vehicle, and you can see it's still butter smooth. I'm not all over the place. The seats hug you good. I like the grip to it. Comparing it to the rivals, I will say this has a more fun factor than the new Mercedes. Now, if you option it with the AMG night package, it does change and make it a little bit more sporty, but it doesn't do anything to the performance drive. The BMW 330i, this is definitely going to be better than that one. Performance numbers is going to be a little bit slower, but still, it's pretty decent. Infiniti Q60, I like the way that one sets. It's very similar to this one, just you have a 2-screen tier in their dash, and you can option a 400 RS, which is insane because it has 400 horsepower on a twin turbo 3.0 liter. But I mean, naturally aspirated V6 is definitely where it's at, and that's why we're going to stop in the middle of the road really quickly and give her some go. The air noise filters in quite a bit, but you're going to expect that with a coupe. I like the fact that you're not necessarily sitting so low either. The seat, you actually feel like you're sitting higher because the door panels are a bit lower, and you are able to see everything through the front. A-pillars are pushed back, so you have that sports style. Now, there is 3 things I like and 3 things that I dislike. Is anything more than that, I'd be buying this RC 350. The 3 things that I like is the Lexus smooth suspension. You do not get that with any of the rivals unless you want to spend a huge price increase, and then it's not even going to be a comparable vehicle, and you still have a fun factor. Green. The second thing that I like about the vehicle is the styling, because this one in the Infiniti Q60 definitely looks the most attracting on the exterior. There's a flip side to that, which we'll get to in a second. The last thing that I like about the vehicle is the fact that you have dynamics and it's not breaking the bank account. Because typically when you start optioning coupes, you're going to start spending $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. Turn radius and more or less a stop point is going to get about a lane and apart. And give her a little go. this is your more or less everyday driving. Now, the three things that I dislike has to start off with the interior. They don't necessarily bring that much sport inside because it does need a touch of a refresh. I kind of like the bi-level dash. I just wish the infotainment screen was more in my face, and I don't like this touchpad. I know there's a couple of things there. We'll leave it as one. The second thing that I dislike about the vehicle is the cargo space. You are losing space in the back seat already. Give me at least 15 to 16 cubic feet of storage in the cargo. And the reason why I say that is because when you get into the rivals, you're gonna have more cargo, plus you still have a backseat capabilities. The last thing that I dislike has to go to this touchpad, and I know I said it kind of on the first, but it just drives me crazy because the stereo system is really good in this vehicle. It has a nice treble and bass. It just has a good blend. It just, try to configure it with this thing, it is so all over the place because it's just wobbly. Come on, use a touch screen. And not trying to sound like a broken record, but when you're in a luxury vehicle, you need to have touch screen. You need to have some of the tech updated. You need to have the latest safety. But for an overall car, awesome. Fun to drive, it ticks the box. Quality, it's a Lexus. Suspension holds itself like butter, and you're not going to be disappointed in a long journey. Whereas when you get to the rivals, it's going to feel a lot more firm. This one, you can actually drive it, and you're not going to be like, oh, my back hurts or this hurts. And when you go over anything, you don't really feel much of the impurities. It soaks it up at a low speed and even at a high speed. I like to thank Lexus of Wesley Chapel for giving us this 2022 Lexus RC 350 for our car review. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Hawkeye community. If not, click the next video, the subscribe button, check out the details, the merchandise, the website, and everything we do here at Hawkeye Rides.